Imagine London, a bustling city, full of life, suddenly plunged into darkness. Not at midnight, but in the middle of the afternoon. This isn't a scene from a disaster movie. It's a true story from December 1952, a time when the sun disappeared and a silent killer crept through the streets. It all started on Friday, December 5th. Londoners woke up to a chilly, foggy morning. Nothing unusual for a London winter. People were getting ready for work, for Christmas shopping, burning extra coal in their fireplaces to fight off the biting cold. Factories and power stations were chugging along, pumping out smoke, just as they always did. But this day was different. A strange weather phenomenon called a temperature inversion had settled over the city. Think of it like a lid on a pot. A layer of warm air trapped the cold, stagnant air below, along with all the smoke and pollution from millions of chimneys. As the morning wore on, the fog didn't lift. Instead, it grew thicker, heavier, and took on a sickly, yellowish-brown tinge. This wasn't the romantic, misty fog you see in old movies. This was a pea souper, a thick, acrid smog that tasted of sulfur and soot. By midday, things took a terrifying turn. The sky, which should have been bright, turned a gloomy twilight. Then, it went almost completely black. People who were there described it as if night had fallen at noon. Visibility dropped to a few feet, then to just inches. You literally couldn't see your own hand held in front of your face. Streetlights, usually off during the day, had to be switched on, but their light barely pierced the suffocating gloom. But here's the incredible part. London didn't just stop. The city tried to carry on. People wrapped scarves around their faces and ventured out, shuffling along sidewalks, feeling their way with their feet, clinging to walls to guide themselves. Buses became almost useless. Conductors had to walk in front of their own buses with flashlights, guiding the drivers inch by agonizing inch. Many services were eventually canceled, leaving thousands stranded. Cars were abandoned right in the middle of the road because drivers could unsee where they were going. The only reliable way to get around was the underground, which became packed with people escaping the toxic world above. Imagine being in a theater, watching a play. Suddenly, you can't see the stage anymore. The smog had seeped inside, so thick that performances had to be stopped mid-show because the audience couldn't see the actors. Even hospitals weren't safe. The toxic air crept into the wards, making patients even sicker. And in this manufactured darkness, crime rates soared. Thieves and muggers used the complete lack of visibility as a perfect cover for their activities. For 5 long days, from December 5th to December 9th, this living nightmare continued. The air wasn't just dark. It was deadly. The combination of sulfur dioxide, coal particles, and other pollutants created a toxic cocktail that attacked people's lungs. The most vulnerable, the elderly, young children, and those with respiratory problems like asthma or bronchitis, suffered the most. At first, no one grasped the full scale of the disaster. It was just a really bad fog. But hospitals were quickly overwhelmed. Ambulances, struggling to navigate the blind streets, often took hours to reach those in need. Undertakers ran out of coffins. Florists ran out of flowers. The city was experiencing a silent, invisible massacre. The initial death toll reported was around 4,000 people. 4,000 lives lost in just a few days because of the air they were breathing. But modern analysis tells a much grimmer story. When you account for the long-term effects and those who died in the weeks and months that followed, the true number is estimated to be closer to 12,000 people. 12,000 souls. And on top of that, over 100,000 people fell ill. It was one of the worst environmental disasters in modern history, happening right in the heart of a major world city. Even animals weren't spared. Cattle at the Smithfield market were reported to have choked to death in their pens. Finally, on December 9th, a change in the weather brought a westerly wind that swept through the city, blowing the monstrous smog out to the North Sea. For the first time in 5 days, Londoners could see the sky again. They could breathe again. But the city was forever changed. The Great Smog of 1952 was a brutal, terrifying wake-up call. It made the invisible threat of air pollution horribly visible. The public and the government could no longer ignore the consequences of burning coal unchecked. The disaster became a major turning point. The shock and horror of those 5 dark days directly led to groundbreaking new laws. In 1956, the UK Parliament passed the Clean Air Act, a revolutionary piece of legislation for its time. It introduced smoke control areas where only smokeless fuels could be burned. It shifted homes away from coal fires towards cleaner alternatives like gas and electricity. It forced factories to build taller chimneys and adopt measures to reduce their emissions. The Great Smog of London is a powerful reminder of how fragile our environment is and how quickly our everyday world can be turned upside down. It's a story of resilience, of a city that tried to keep going even when it was blind. But more importantly, it's a story of change. It shows that even from the darkest of tragedies, we can learn, we can adapt, and we can build a cleaner, healthier future. The clean air we often take for granted in many cities today is, in part, a legacy born from those 5 terrible days when London was plunged into darkness at noon. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let me know in the comments what you think. See you next time.